All right, so my first question would be what was your reaction when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee back in 2016 protesting police brutality during the national anthem?
Um, when I first saw Colin, take the knee, I researched, what he was protesting, right? Because originally he was sitting down, right? If you remember, he was sitting down, and no one really paid attention to it. Like he had been sitting down, and then when he took the knee, and come to find out that he spoke with some veterans and different things like that, they said it would be more respectful if he took the knee as opposed to sitting down. And so the shift from him sitting down to taking the knee, I thought it was powerful. A lot of people ask the question, is it disrespectful to the flag? And I remember teaching in my sociology of race course, one of my students came up to me and was like, Professor Sawyer, you were in the military, so do you think that he's disrespecting the flag? And so one of the things that I talked to them about is the fact that him protesting is actually one of the most American things that he could do, right? Using his platform, using his voice to resist and to protest is an American ideal and practice. So when we think about the people who are defending our freedom and fighting for the Constitution, they're fighting for our right to be able to protest in the nation. And we talk about being one of the most free nations. And so I thought what he was doing was actually unbelievably American.
Yeah. So, what kind of message do you think is sending to black athletes or black citizens in general? Seeing that after Colin Kaepernick protested, he's out of a job and he hasn't been back in the NFL since then. What type of message do you think this is sending to athletes about America, I guess?
Mm-hmm. And so I think it sends fear, right? Because if you see, okay, he did this and he's not working, I may not even be like a max contract type player, so I gotta chill, right? Because I might be singled out. Colin Kaepernick, he had some money, stashed to the side, but like you have like linemen and other players who may not be making that type of money, and so them participating in it might be more detrimental for them. And so I think the league sends this sense of fear that, okay, if this is what you want to do, then you're not going to be in this league, because people try to argue and say that he wasn't a good quarterback, and I'm like, yo, come on, if you've been watching football and you see the quarterbacks that are in the league, he's better than a great majority of the quarterbacks in the league. So you can't say that it's about his football skill. That's asinine. And so, it remains to be seen what's going to happen with his collusion case, but I do believe that he was kept out of the league because of his protesting. It definitely wasn't about skill.
Yeah. You talk about fear in your answer, and when I've talked to a lot of people, they say that this idea of fear plays a big role into the whole narrative of the black man in America. The white man sees black face, and oftentimes the first thing they think of is fear, which is a big part of the whole epidemic has been with police brutality, which is what some would argue. So how do you think this idea of fear and the black face and how the two have been kind of intertwined with their meanings over the history of America?
So I think when we talk about fear of the black body, right, or this black presence, and if we're specifically talking about males, we see these dominant images of males as the aggressive, overly sexed, violent being, right? And so this is what you see over and over again in the media, whether it's the news, whether it's movies, videos, music, like it doesn't matter. So this is the constant image, this controlling image that's being put out there. And so this becomes what people see, and this becomes their reality. So there's the sense of fear, right? And that plays into it, right? When we talk about police brutality, you hear in the people who have been killed, well, you don't hear from them because they've been killed, but in the officers that have shot them, I fear for my life, right? Like, what is it about this person that made you fear for your life? And that's usually a reason that's given to take out, some of these unarmed black men that we're talking about, right? We see that other people have been taken into custody without being killed, but for some reason, this fear that's associated with a black male is something that overtakes someone, and they can say, I fear for my life. And so it doesn't just happen with police. It happens when you walk into a classroom. Like, people make assumptions about who you are based on how you look and the narratives that have been playing around in their head throughout their lives based on these controlling images that they see. And so it just so happens that police have the ability to take a life, whereas in the college classroom that same fear, that same apprehension exists, but their control over your life is a bit different.
So, in what ways has this epidemic of police brutality, had an impact on your life?
Police brutality and the impact on my life. Well, I think one of the things that happens is I've had to stop watching stuff, right? Like on Facebook, Twitter, people are sending all of these videos of police brutality. And what people don't understand, or a number of people don't understand, is that even if it's not happening to you, you viewing it as is a form of trauma, right? It's a form of trauma. And I felt like after watching different things, and it was after when I saw the Philando Castile shooting, like I felt like my chest getting tight, like my breathing, increasing, my heart rate speeding up, just by looking at this video, and I start to see like the impact that it had on me, even if it wasn't happening to me, even though I wasn't in that car, I felt like it was there, and so I felt my body reacting to it. So I had to say, I can't watch this stuff, right? Because I'm repeatedly traumatizing myself. I can't turn a blind eye to it, but I can't constantly watch it and take this in and not realize the fact that it's having a detrimental impact on my physical being and health. And so that's the way that it's impacted me in that sense. I've had run-ins with the police throughout my life. I grew up in Harlem through the crack cocaine epidemic, and we didn't necessarily have positive relationships with the police. They weren't from our neighborhoods. We weren't seen, this whole idea of community policing didn't exist. We were seen as potential suspects. And we were seen as, people who were about to cause trouble, even though we were just walking down the street or coming from school. So my interactions with police growing up haven't always been positive, even with law enforcement in my family. And so I think what happens is people say, has police brutality increased? And I'm not sure that it's increased. I think that we are becoming more aware of it because we have cell phones that have camera, that have recording capabilities, and we're seeing more of it. I'm not sure if it's increased.